go. All right. Oh, yeah, look at him. You got to fight him on the surface.
What I like to do is take an RC jig from Northland Fishing Tackle.
Get the shiner after the fish attacked it. Hook 'em weedless style.
This puppy wanted a jigging size sucker minnow. Yeah, sucker minnow.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bro Road Show on the water. And also, welcome to May. It's already May, believe it or not. It feels like we're going through our second or third winter right now, but we're in northern Minnesota, and I'm jealous of some of you guys down in Ohio on Erie, and of course, we're going to have Kent later on here from Fishman, or Ken. I'm sorry, Ken. Ken from Fisherman's Guide Service down on the Detroit River, and those guys are seeing grass, robins nesting, and probably lawn mowing going on. And we're still soggy and full of snow and high water. So we just want to bring in everything that we can from reports from around the Midwest to help you better yourselves and have a better experience in the boat, and things that you don't always hear. And so sometimes we're talking about Missouri River, Mississippi River, Rainy River, and here we're going to go to Detroit and talk about that coming up here. And I just want to congratulate, before I bring in my co-host, Sam, Lauren Durr. Congratulations on that win, and great job. Awesome. And I'm going to bring in Sam right away, Brooke, if you would. And we got a lot to talk about here.
Hey, bro.
Hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you for a few hours, man.
Long time no see.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, we always talk about what's going on, and right now, let's talk about what we did today. We
finally made it on the water.
We were on the water today.
The water was still frozen.
But my Lund was still in the garage,
yeah.
But the water was still frozen. We wanted a quest to find the last ice. And I tell you, that's going to be my last ice, I'll tell you that. But we had a great time using some new prototypes and experimenting with some Northland lures, and caught and quickly released some accidental fish, but also caught jumbo perch. We didn't keep anything. The perch weren't giant, but they were definitely not too bad. But it was fun to bend the rod and set the hook. We had 22 inches of hard ice. We did get some nicer perch, as you can see right there. And it was starting to go on the surface, but it still came up like snow, which is absolutely amazing. And I ice fished the opener about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was unbelievable. And great job, Lauren. So I don't really need to ice fish the opener anymore.
Yeah, like you said, it was a little. The ice was good when we got to good ice, but it was a little bit of a challenge getting to good ice. So I would say today is probably the last good safe day out there. There's a lot of variations in the conditions too, but I've been ice fishing in May once before. I know you've been once before. So if you get the opportunity to try to make it happen, we had to take advantage of it. But yeah, I think it's done. I hope it's done. We don't need any freezing weather to make this ice better. So
no, we don't. And here's the thing, though. There's still a lot of ice on it, but don't go. I'm telling you, don't go ice fishing. This was a professional stunt, and we had all kinds of like stuff out there, equipment. I had a float coat, everything you imagine, spikes and ropes, and takes the fun out of it when it's like that. But we didn't need it, obviously. But the shorelines are all turned into mush, and if you don't got a Willcraft, forget about it. But the thing is, this ain't going away quick. It's going to be floating. Lake Winnebagosh still has, in some spots, has 25 to 28 inches of ice out there, and it's hard. But I wouldn't go on it anymore. There's other water starting to open, and that was our May thing, and we got it done with. And we're heading out to go hit the open water, but it's really raging on some rivers, I could tell you that. But we'll show you some pictures later. So Sam, the Wisconsin opener is this coming up weekend, Saturday, for opener of walleye. and they have, lakes that are open year round. They have Winnebago, and they have Mississippi border waters are open, and so there's a lot of places to go. But that's going to be open up this Saturday, and they're at the same. Northern Wisconsin is the same level of north as we are.
Yep.
So
my aunt was just sending me pictures of her lake in northern Wisconsin, and their ice is just creeping off the shoreline still. So similar situations where it's going to have that cold water to it. So
yeah, and if I was there for the opener, I won't be there on the opener. I'm going to be heading west, and I would be using a fireball jig and load it up with shiner or fathead, and it just works everywhere. What would you use?
I think I'd be doing the same thing, using a fireball, starting slow, like we've talked about, and increasing your speed to see what you can get away with. But it's definitely going to be a little bit more of a finessey bite with the cold water we have going. The good thing about too is that jig bite's going to last a lot longer, probably easily into June at this point. So we're going to have a phenomenal jig bite. It might take a little bit to get going. We might have to slow it down a little bit at the beginning, but it should be a really, really fun spring because it's hard to beat catching walleyes on a jig.
Absolutely. And our opener is just a week later. And so, great. Thanks, Jeff. 44 degrees on Bagel. That's still, there's still going to be females with eggs in them there because 50 degrees, they should be done, usually 50, 55. But the NWT just happened over by Chamberlain, and that's in South Dakota on the Missouri River. And so we had we had a Northland Pro get in the top 10. Who was that?
Sammy Capelli finished sixth in that tournament. So Northland,
great job, Sammy.
Seems like some fish are getting caught. It doesn't sound like it was the greatest bite in the world, but it beats ice fishing, I think. So
well, and Dusty did a great job. He represented well. Hey, Chris, how you doing? In that one, AFCO Sunline Pro Dean Earl Nodelson got fourth place. Dean he's like one of the top anglers of all time. He's over $1 million in winnings, but he got in there, and it was good to see Dean get up in fourth place there. And those guys really earned it at that one. But I tell you what, I'm thinking close to home now. And I just actually got off the river here just the other day.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about that on the ice, but tell the viewers how that trip was for you.
Well, and Sam, before I do that, would you tell them that they could actually keep sturgeon now?
Yes. So right now, I don't know the exact regulations, but there is the keep season going on until the 7th. So you need a tag. I believe it's one a year. I don't remember exactly how you acquire a tag. I think you can buy them over the counter. It might be an application. But yeah, that'll go through the 7th. And then the 8th through the 15th goes back to catch and release. And then it closes down for a while into June, maybe even early July to let them do their spawn thing and whatnot. But yeah, still lots of opportunity to get after sturgeon before our walleye opener opens up here in Minnesota.
It's it's one of those things, even though you want to fillet a walleye and get out there and stuff, sturgeon's fun, but it was busy. We went up there here just 2 days ago. I had my buddy Todd Dankert, who was a championship pro on the Missouri River up by Bismarck. He actually was the co-angler champion, and he was a traveling co-angler with me, but he's also his own pro. And I took him. He helped me with rigging my Lund boat out for sturgeon, and he caught one, and there's a 55-incher. Now Todd's 6'2", so if that tells you, and he's a big guy, so look at that sturgeon. He was actually pretty happy. He got a fish right away. The water was just brown, and there was entire trees floating down. But 6-ounce sinker, and we had a hard time staying on the bottom. Mm-hmm. Hard time finding current seams, and there's some current seams, but every time you find them, there's a string of boats. But the river's high, and it's safe for running. Really enjoyable to be out there. It was drizzly rain and kind of rugged out there. Within a couple hours, all the boats that we drove by were all gone. And, I stayed warm. I had my AFCO hydronaut suit. You put this on, you feel like you're going to do a spacewalk. but that thing was toasty warm. And then I have my Fish Monkey gloves. There's something to be said about the stubby wool gloves to keep your hands warm. And then, of course, I have this to keep the wind off. I want sun. I want sun to crisp me up a little bit, but this is nice to keep the wind off. But we had another thing that we used on our Lund. I had never in my life used a bimini top. Never. I've been in boats that had them. They're all folded up. But at this particular time, I brought it out. And let me tell you something. It was amazing to use. There we are. And you could see on the windows, the rain. It was pouring, and we set it up. And when you're sturgeon fishing, you gotta anchor up, and you got to put in your time, chunk down some crawlers. That was great. And Todd turned to me and said, "Are we getting older?" And I turned back and I said, "We're getting wiser." I mean, I almost didn't bring it because I've never used one before. And this was sweet. And Brian Hammond, I'm telling you, if for that kind of condition, if you're going to be sitting in one spot, you can't beat it. And then the rest of the day, we drove up and down the river using that. But the water's up in the trees in Birchdale. The campground is flooded. It's all the way up into there. And so really, really high water. I don't want to see it that high, but in my area, we had a drought last year. Our lakes were going away. And I figured someday I'm going to sell this field. Well, not a field. I'm on a lake, but it looked like a field because the water was so low. It's all the way up past where it was. So everything's coming back, and it's something how 1 year changes everything. And that happened to Wisconsin last year. But so the Lund and the Bimini top was awesome. So
as I said,
now,
nothing can ruin a river trip quicker than being unprepared in some bad weather. It just seems like the wind has a special way of howling down that river, and it can get miserable real quick if you're not prepared. So,
well, that's just
I've been there. I've left early.
I seen that there's some, and trust me, I was ready because I had my hydronaut suit and I had my gloves, but I'm not there to torture Todd either, And so, if you've seen when he was holding the sturgeon, his fingers were pink, just because he didn't have the gloves. And so it's a good way to go if you're sitting in a spot. It's like deer hunting. You're waiting for these big creatures to come through. And I heard of a 66 that day, and some kids that drove up 8 hours and they're camping in their van, got a 49.5-inch keeper, I guess. And so it was really slow, but sunny days are going to be better. And the water was 36.5 degrees. I couldn't believe it. And it's just, there's ice floating in the water. So there's your report on that. And so, Sam, you drove back from the cities, never made it on the Mississippi.
Yep.
Tell the viewers what you've seen for ice. What was open, what wasn't?
Our marketing coordinator, Joey Oman, got married this weekend, so we were out celebrating that. So congratulations to Joey and Allison. They had their wedding closer down to the city's area to make it easier for some family across the nation to make it. But yeah, on the way back, I was kind of keeping an eye on the ice line. And I was getting really excited because we had open water a long ways. I started to notice the ice on the ponds and the lakes and everything just south of Akeley.
That's the line.
That's kind of the line. I also talked with Craig Dickmeyer today, and he says his stuff around Brainerd is getting really, really close. So yeah, that it's creeping up. It's getting closer to us in the North Country. But for those of you down south of there's some fishable opportunity out. And some of our lakes are starting to go quicker than others too, right, bro?
Oh, absolutely. If you're going to pick a lake and, you got to base it on lakes that have rivers or creeks or that are going to have a lot of flow. The lake we're on today has a creek coming out of it, but the lakes with the Mississippi, lakes with other rivers, it's just chewing it up. And I seen a report online that Andrusia, the south end, is open all the way up to Joe's Lodge. And where other lakes were locked up tight, that was several days ago. So anything with a river, the water raised up. Some of the waters around my area have Bowstring River. There's a lot of rivers, all these different rivers coming through. They actually rose up, so it's chewing the ice up. So there's a good chance we'll be open by the opener. But pick your lake wisely, and even if your cabin isn't by it, pick something that will be open, and you'll be surprised. It might be pretty good.
It looks like Bemidji's opening up by the day. So the south end where the Mississippi flows through there, It's really getting wide. Almost, well, I think it's past the library now, almost over to the Sanford Center. And then Irving, too, I caught a glimpse of it through the trees as I was driving by today. So that would be the lake just upstream from Bemidji. That seems to be almost like halfway open, it looked like. Like I said, I didn't drive down there and get a solid look, but I looked through the trees and I thought, wow, it's a lot of open water around there. So no matter what happens, I think we're going to be able to get the boats out around Bemidji. But yes, you might have to pick and
Thanks
choose
for the
your
report.
lakes.
Joel, thanks for the report there. He just was talking about around North Madison area, the waters aren't too raging, and so that's really good. But in Wisconsin also it's the same. Flowage is always open first, and we got a really awesome guest coming up tonight, Ken Clark from Fishmas Guide Service, serving the Detroit area, in Erie and Saginaw Bay. I don't know, there's so many lakes. We're just going to concentrate on the ones that are like, huge named lakes, but he's going to be coming up a little bit. But Sam, we got some giveaways tonight for those people watching. What do we got?
Like always, we got another Northland prize pack to give away. Again, with this one, we're going to go deep V jigs. So we got a bunch of deep V, the deep V bucktail, which, I mean, that bucktail, putting a little minnow behind that on opener would be awesome. And then, of course, the Bro Roadshow mug. So to get entered into this giveaway, make sure to like, comment your questions, and share this show on your social media. That'll give you a chance to get entered in, and we'll be selecting a winner towards the end of the show. So make sure you're liking, sharing, and commenting throughout the show. It really helps us, and you'll get a chance to win. Also, we still have the $500 walleye sweepstakes prize package going on at northlandtackle.com. So you can head over to our website, and there's some instructions of how to sign up for that giveaway as well. So lots of Northland tackle to be won these days.
Well, and you have to have a Lund boat to fit all that in all your storage compartments. That's a lot of tackle. And here's the thing. Here's a deep V. That is an awesome jig for jigging walleyes up, and I will have one of these tied on my line. And depending on where it goes, I haven't decided yet. Thanks for the comment on the Bro Roadshow mug. It's awesome. And we're going to have plenty of places to go here. Bait is a big concern, as always, but we had a tough winter. I might have to I'm going to see if I can get a trapper on next week to get it. We got to go from the grains of sand all the way to the top. And our trappers are super important. We're a glacial lake area. The fish follow, they bump it. It can be really, really, really a tough deal. And so right now, you really want to make sure that you check before you go. And if you can't get minnows, night crawlers will be good. There's always minnows, no matter what is going on. We always seem to get minnows, but shiners, from what I know, they could trap shiners till May 22nd, I think. Am I right? Anybody out there? But the water temperature, those shiners are going to run all the way into June. They come up in the shallows to spawn, and then the trappers trap them. So I'm hoping my good buddies at the DNR place will let us have the trappers out there. I don't trap. I'd rather buy it from them, because that's a whole world in itself. And I love getting minnows, and I've done it in the past, but I would gladly pay someone to get them so I could be on the water and fishing. And so we'll find out more. I might have to bring call down and bring someone on, maybe a warden or a specialist, large water specialist, talk about bait and what we're going to do this year, because if they can only trap till the 22nd, we're going to have empty jigs. So you might not want to use that. You might want to use this, coming up here. We know in tournaments, there's pros that go out there and they jig puppet minnows. And last year I was killing them on the coffin spoon when the water temperature is over 70, but it makes a big difference to be under. But right now I'm going to bring on Ken Clark from Fishmas, and this guy is awesome, and he is a Lund guy, St. Croix, and of course, Sam, he is
a Northland guy. Yeah, so
bring on. How you doing, buddy?
Hi,
Good
guys.
to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I remember Heather and I were fishing on the Detroit River, and someone said, "Hey, bro," and I looked up, and you were there, and you were actually bringing clients in, and you had their limit already. I don't want to throw myself under the bus how late we started that morning, but it didn't seem to matter. But you see a lot of fish, and you fish a lot of waterways. What Lund are you going to choose this year?
I've got a Lund 2175. That's what I've had the last couple times. So,
wow, big one.
Oh, I'd have a 2275 if they made it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and I know your clients were real comfortable, but that's a great boat and good to hear. So, how has the bite been on the Detroit River and in the area?
It's not the best bite ever, but it's pretty darn good. Since the NWT, it's got nothing but a lot better.
Oh, yeah, they had a tough. Oh my goodness,
they had it tough. Yeah,
I seen some pictures of like the backs of people's boats were frozen with ice, and the water temperature was so cold it just drove the fish right out of the river. And the Detroit River isn't even really a river; it's a strait in the Great Lakes. You'd call it a strait, if you were a captain of a ship or something like that. But that's some serious water. What kind of fish sizes do you get out of there, and how big do they get?
The males come first, and then the females come a little later, and then the males stick around. And we're getting the males now, but the females, years ago, it wasn't uncommon to get a 10, 11, occasional 12, but now an 8 or 9 is pretty good size fish, typically.
Yeah, but so that kind of ran through, didn't it?
Are you getting Are you getting that first wave of males in right now before the females, or have the females already run, and now the males are kind of sticking around?
Females are pretty well gone. They're getting them pretty good right out in Lake Erie, and they're all spawned out. They'll get 8, 9, maybe a 10-pound fish that's 31, 32, 33 inches spawned out.
Those Great Lakes fish are something special. I've only been out to Green Bay once, and I remember fishing with the guys, and we get some nice ones, and I'm like, oh, wow. And they're like, oh, just wait until we get a good one. And one guy ended up catching one, and it looked like a monster, unlike any walleye I've ever seen before. The head on it was mammoth. The body was mammoth. The gut was unbelievable. And they're like, this is kind of like an okay sized one. So those Great Lakes fish are incredible. So very cool.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to ask you. What months do you fish the Detroit River versus Saginaw Bay or Lake Erie?
I typically I start on Detroit River the last week of March. Usually you can get on the river. There's not ice flows coming down. And there's some pretty good fish in there already. Maybe not in the numbers, but pretty good fish. Then I'm there all of April. And then sometime in May, I'll go up to the St. Clair River, maybe for a week. Those fish come out of Lake Huron, which is north of there and deeper than Lake Erie. So those fish are typically a little later than the Detroit River fish.
Oh, that's very interesting. And so you've got, we call it the age of the water temperature. And so you could jump around from temperature to temperature because the peak temperature seems to be, what's your personal thing? Is it in the 40s to 50s?
I figure right about 50. My regular customers, typically I tell them to plan on May 1st, even though it's quite a bit later. Then there's a lot of fish in there, but there's a really lot of fish and usually a little better weather around the 1st of May. And
sure.
They actually get them into June.
Sure. So they actually, someone just asked a question. What's a water temperature right now on the Detroit?
I wish I would have looked at that today, but
it doesn't have to be today.
I'd say it's right around 50. It could have been 48 and a half, 49, about 50, almost 50.
Wow. That's getting good.
How are you catching the fish in the river now? Do you use some of the kind of the what I consider wild techniques like the hand lining, and some of the stuff those National Walleye Tour pros do, or you kind of simplify it to a more traditional walleye fishing program?
What I typically do most of the time, and I always tell people it's my second most favorite way to catch walleye, and that's vertical jigging. So
Sure.
we here, I know Minnesota guys, when I told them, hey, we start at 1 ounce, they're like, start at 1 ounce. Yeah, that's what they do. They're like, what the heck? So here's a 1 ounce jig, 4-inch tail, stinger hook.
Yep.
That's my rig right there. So that's what I did like all day today and pretty much most of the month so far. However, if you've ever watched that head-to-head thing, it really got something popular that really has added a new dimension, and that's casting.
Oh, they're casting now. I've never done that there before because your current speeds are 3 to 4 miles an hour, and so I didn't witness that TV show. So could you tell the viewers more about this? This is great.
Sure. I actually did a seminar 2 weeks ago tonight for the local club, the Downriver Walleye Federation. And it was about 125 guys, and most of them a little older, and said, how many people handline? And all the hands went up. I said, so how many of you exclusively handline? And a couple hands went up. Said, when I started fishing the river in 1987, about a third of the people would always be handlining. I said, I fished the entire day and saw 3 people handline. Why is that? And, somebody said, because the water's clear. I said, right. So if the only thing you knew how to do was handline and you never learned a vertical jig, you'd be screwed. I said, the same thing is true now. If the only thing you know how to do is either handline or jig, you're screwed because the water is so much cleaner than it has been in years past. When I first started fishing it in 1987, it kind of smelled like fuel oil. But now there's times you can see 8, 10, 12 feet down. And the way to get those fish, especially in the shallow water, like in these little 12-foot pockets, is casting.
Wow.
So, and the way you do it, or the way I do it, is with my Minn Kota, put it on spot lock, and have myself and customers cast right into these little pockets. And those things will be holding fish all day long. And that's kind of what that head-to-head thing kind of showed us.
That's interesting how they could come into a body of water. You take these tournaments with the pros. I was at a tournament where they trolled bass spinner baits through trees, and I know they did that out in Nebraska, but finally it exploded all over the place. And then, a little local thing around here, somebody started before the puppet minnow started using a jig and wraps, and that exploded all over the place. And then now pitching on the Great Lakes, I tried it everywhere on Erie, and I get sheephead or whatever, but it's a fine-tuned thing, and so it's all changing to pitching. And when I was in it, it was all trolling. So pitching on the Detroit River, that is super interesting. That's really cool.
So is the casting technique, is that still a heavy current situation where you need to use a big jig, or is that in little eddies and pockets where you can get away with a little lighter presentation?
Yeah, great question. Actually, we're in shallower water, and typically, you talked earlier, bro, about current breaks. That's what you're looking for here. You're looking not out typically in the middle of the river, but maybe on top of an island or behind an island somewhere, or right near where it's going to neck down, and you can see good areas. And then you use your electronics to find them.
Well, interesting. So there's probably, I've been there at times. There's hundreds of boats, all the way from the candy canes all the way up to Mud Hen, going into the High Bridge, and salt mines, and all this stuff. And it's just an amazing thing. It's very historical when you go there, and you're figuring you're by downtown Detroit, but in some of the abandoned steel mill areas, there's deer and wild turkeys walking around and stuff. You're fishing in the Detroit River, and there's wildlife all over the place. And then I thought they were pelicans, and then I seen these like trumpeter swans, and someone told me no, those aren't nice ones. They're a mean bird. They're a black swan. Is that what they are?
I'm not sure about that. I don't.
They're all over the place over there, but there's so many different types of water there. But my first impression, I was expecting, like you said, in the 80s, how the water was dark and polluted. This water is aqua blue. Looks like the ocean.
So
It's unbelievable. It's really fun to be on because it's so clear and clean looking. And
what cleared up the water there, Ken? Was it, it sounds like a little bit of pollution, but also zebra mussels have been in the Great Lakes. Is it a kind of a combination of both, or why such the big change, in the last 30 years?
Yeah. A lot of those factories that were on the river they're either not running or they're not running like they did. The environmental movement, the EPA, monitoring things has really helped.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But zebra mussels certainly as well.
So a bigger pollution issue.
It's amazing.
Sam, you asked the question about you use a little smaller. I typically use a 1/2 ounce jig or 3/8, and then use typically a 4-inch paddle tail and pitch out there, and you just kind of pop it just a little bit. And if you're not getting caught in the rocks once in a while, you're probably fishing in the wrong spot, because that's what they're really holding in, those little rock piles.
Interesting. Yeah, that's and do you use it on a paddle tail? You really can't use a stinger, do you, or do you stick it on there?
No, that's a great point. You do not want to use a stinger when you're casting for them. You just use your jig, and you don't have to use a paddle tail. You can use really any plastic.
Yeah, and I noticed on that river that stingers are such an important thing. Most of the time, when you're tight lining straight up and down vertical, most of your fish are on the stinger.
Absolutely. I had one guy on the boat today that was kind of keeping track of that, and once we had our limit, he goes, I think it was 70% that were just on the stinger.
Don't go without them. Stick on stingers.
Well, we had a good question about that a little bit earlier in the show. Are stingers something you use seasonally? If so, is there a certain water temperature where you start getting away with them, with the fish get more aggressive, or is it when the fish are in the river like that, you got to have a stinger tied on?
I use a stinger only for vertical jigging like that. I don't I'll start fishing Lake Erie. I think it's May 18th this year. I just make a clean break from one day to the next. And then I'm using crawler haulers.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. That's awesome. And so you go out there, and in Minnesota here, we got a little distance here, but there are people here probably who've never fished Erie, Detroit River, St. Clair, and there's 10,000 plus 16,000, over 16,000 lakes in Minnesota. But this is a crazy state, and so is Wisconsin, and you get a lot of Wisconsin guys over there. And if people here who are suffering from cabin fever, I mean, we had a terrible winter, and you guys did too in Michigan, wanted to come to Detroit River or Lake Erie, where would you recommend them to stay? And then, of course, to get a hold of you for guiding, go to Fishmas. Do you have a website?
Yes, fishmascharters.com. Fishmascharters.com. Where I stay, it's just a little 13-room inn. It's called the Pilot House, and I'm right near it now on Gross Eel. But there's a lot of hotels, and I mean, bed and breakfast. I had a customer this week that found a nice little place over in Trenton, right on the Trenton Channel.
Oh, that's really a cool thing. And I was lucky enough to meet a group that knew somebody on Gross Eel, and this is an island in Detroit River, and it seems like from some of those houses out there, it kind of reminds me of Minnetonka, some giant homes, and we were on a canal, so we'd boat out to the river, go under a bridge, and there's the tournament. and it was just a lucky thing. I've never had it so good, but really cool. And the tournaments are the reason I was able to find this area and fish, but super spectacular. But now you're heading to Erie, and you're going to be dragging those baits. Do you ever use butterfly blades out there?
Oh yeah, of course. But normally I'm using the crawler haulers. Hey,
Okay.
I thought of something kind of funny. I had somebody from Minnesota last week, and they were like, I'm jigging with 2 rods. They're like, I'm from Minnesota. Our motto is 10,000 lakes, 1 rod. And so I was talking to some Northland folks here, I don't know, a few years ago about using planer boards. And they're like, what, planer boards? I said, well, yeah, how else are you going to run 3 rods? 3 rods?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when I'm on Lake Erie, I'm typically running 14 rods. So the Minnesota folks are like,
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you have 14 people? You don't.
Well,
you don't need. Yeah.
We almost had 2 rods, and it narrowly got voted down. They did a vote, and it only missed by a few. And some of the guys here like the 1 rod.
Yeah.
I know one cranky one that likes using 1 rod, and I would love to have 2 or 3 rods. You could have a slip bobber out and then pitch jigs. A little different fishing here, but it's always interesting to see how it goes. Do you ever catch fish pitching on Erie? And then the second part of it, do you use bottom bouncers? We'll get into that because someone just asked that on the Detroit River in Erie.
I love to jig, and I always say trolling is for people who can't jig. That's supposed to be a joke. I'm sorry, but
hey, I like it. I love jigging myself.
I love jigging. So when it gets time to drag crawler harnesses downstream with bottom bouncers, if I'm going to do that, I go out into Lake Erie.
Sure.
And then I troll. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but I don't own a bottom bouncer. Don't own one. Don't have one on the boat. Don't own one at all. I use something. It's called an inline weight, called a Stingray diving weight from Kurt's Tackle, and it's just a different. Actually, happen to have one.
Oh, it's kind of like
it's an inline weight. It's like a fish weight or any kind of
like a snap weight. And like when you get to Erie, you can go to any shop there, and they have all this stuff. I mean, you walk in, they got every type of snap weight, and they got planer boards. If someone came and they didn't have this stuff, they could show up and grab that stuff. And once you go there and do that, you come back here, you find out, the boards do work, but you got one line out there.
Exactly. If I fish tournaments in Minnesota, and I'll tell you, I didn't use planer boards. And I know why people back troll here. I'm like, they invented electric trolling motors, so you don't have to do that. And they're like, and then I'm out in Mille Lacs, and I'm like, I can see why you would want to do it with one rod.
I think the only place a tiller is still sold is north of Brainerd. That's what we all go to. It's like, oh, we all love tillers, and you talk to people down south, and they're like, why do you love tillers so much? But
my first charter boat was a Lund tiller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about that snap weight a little bit, because I'm kind of a dumb bottom bouncer fisherman. I drop it to the bottom and hold it. How are you judging your dive depth with that? Are you letting it hit the bottom and reeling it a couple cranks up? How do you figure out where your spinner is in the water column with that?
There's a dive curve right on the package.
Okay, so it's just like fishing a crankbait.
Yeah, there's a 1, 2, and a 3, and their dive curve is 4-to-1, 3-to-1, 2-to-1.
Okay.
So this is a number 3. So I know that at 1.5 miles an hour with 10-pound test monofilament, this is going to go 2-to-1. So if I'm out 40 feet, I'm down 20. But I troll 1.2 miles an hour, plus or minus 0. And I'm typically, with a number 3, I'm using a braided line. So it cuts the water even more. So I know in about 32 feet of water, I only have to let out about 40 feet on this. It's not a snap weight, it's an actual inline weight. So this goes to my line, and this goes back to my harness. That's why I got a little snap swivel on it. So
that's interesting. And just keep moving. You just keep going along. Yeah. And I'd be totally interested. I know this probably is a silly question, but I got to ask it. From Minnesota, do you ever throw out a whole spread of slip bobbers and with a whole night crawler suspended off the bottom, or is the trolling just going to kick butt over that stuff?
Typically, trolling is going to kick butt over that.
Yeah,
I'm going to cover. There's so many fish. I know Minnesota's got a lot of fish, but the Lake Erie system, they've always said the entire Lake Erie system has half the adult walleye population from the world.
Yeah.
120 million walleye can't be wrong. I didn't want to do a sales pitch, but I go through a lot of crawler haulers a year. I use the regular one on my suspended rods, and then I use the one with the floater pill on what I call my down rods.
Sure.
So one of the things I tell people is if the only place you fish walleye in a lake is on the bottom, about half the time you're wrong. You're missing the boat, because those suspended fish, the higher they are in the water column, the more aggressively they're feeding. But also the higher they are, the spookier they are to the boat, which is why you're getting them out to the side with your planer board.
Sure. And that's something that you guys in the Great Lakes, I think, have always known, but it's something too I hear more and more with the addition of live sonar. The guys are learning around here that you can find suspended fish out there, cast to them, and catch them. So it's kind of crazy, but yeah, that they've always said that. I think, Minnesota, you have so much structure. You always go to the structure points and you catch fish there because they hold there, but we're also learning a lot of fish suspend like that too. And
well, that being said, going back, someone was talking about that weight that you have there. Do you drop at the bottom? And you don't drop at the bottom. You drop it to a target depth.
Exactly. I'm trolling and I'm putting stuff out, and I got a pretty good idea, right where it's at. Unless a boat wake hits me in the front, and then stuff is on the bottom, and then you check it, make sure you don't have a zebra mussel or something didn't grab it.
Okay. And then for people who, well, there's going to be a lot of people who haven't fished and a lot who have, but if you're going to recommend to go with you, or if they're going to be out there, where would you start in Erie? The walleyes seem to migrate on Erie. I mean, there's the Bass Islands, there's the west part, there's the power plant. How is the migration route there?
Yeah, typically they come out of the Detroit River and then they go out like in front of Monroe, go down south toward Toledo, make their way over to Ohio, toward New York, come back around Canada, and by then it's time to go back up the river. But in
the fall.
Yeah, I stay on Lake Erie typically a little bit in May, all of June, most of July, and then I'm done because I'm fishing Michigan water. And if you look at a chart of the lake, there's not a lot of Michigan water in Lake Erie.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I focus.
Minn Kota, do you use the Minn Kota? Do you have an Altera, so self-deploying and stuff like that?
I don't, only because I fish right up until December, and I'm always a little concerned that it could freeze up on me a little bit. So I use an iPilot Tarova. Oh
yeah, and now, so do you? Can you just set that and troll different patterns that you use, or do you use a spot lock? Do you use what system do you use that? Do you use jog or anything?
I'm sorry, I was reading one of the comments when you were saying that, and it was one of my customers from this week saying, ask him what his favorite way to catch walleye is. So
yeah, well, your favorite way is jigging, right?
Well, I always tell people when we're in the river, I said, boy, I love doing this. I look forward to this year round. This is my second most favorite way to get them. So
what's your first?
I knew this. So I got to tell a little backstory here. Bro, I'm sorry, but Ken may have a reputation around the office as the best puppet minnow customer. He literally orders them by like the hundreds.
Wow.
the puppet minnows working. He literally orders puppet minnows by like almost the hundreds. It's crazy. So Ken, talk a little bit about the puppet minnow.
Oh, if you don't mind, I got to tell you, I look forward to the fall to use this puppet minnow. This one, it's a 1 ounce. It's the Glow Perch PMD UV 5-20, 3.5-inch glow perch.
And hold it up to the camera a little closer.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, you can see it.
I tell people, I bought 868 of these. Do you know why I bought 868? Because that's all they had.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
This will be tied on every single rod from September until December. One color, one weight. If we're fishing in 15 feet of water, we're fishing in 70 feet of water, we're fishing in 90 feet of water.
90?
Literally.
90 feet of water?
Absolutely.
Where do you find that? Secret Lake?
Well, there even, St. Clair River has got some 90 feet of water, but
true.
Yeah, some northern lakes that I fish in the fall. That's all I do, and that's my favorite way to catch them. You lose a few of them. So I never want to be without. You guys had a hard time getting them one time in stock, so said that can't happen again.
That's very interesting, northern pike are the mortal enemy to a person who loves puppet minnows because they got teeth, and you don't want to use a leader. But how are you fishing the puppet minnows? Are you ripping them, or are you just jigging them lightly?
No, great question. What I tell people is if you're doing it right and people are watching you, they think you're snagging. So you're working them pretty aggressively. The deeper of the water you're in, the farther you can cast them from the boat.
Sure.
How many people have gotten on the boat say, what cast? This is like any of those baits that you like ice fish. You just go over the side. Oh, no. You cast them out and you jig them back. And when you pull back and they're there, that's the most fun way to get them.
You're fishing it almost like you're setting the hook on every jig, right?
Yeah.
If you feel it, you pull a little bit farther. And that you're right, that it is.
That's super interesting.
A way to catch it. I think my favorite way to catch a walleye is ripping a puppet minnow like that.
Oh my goodness. I don't know how many people I've done seminars where I say, if this isn't in your arsenal, you're doing it wrong, because you've got to have this. It's so simple. I tell customers, I say, the greatest compliment you can pay me when you get off my boat is to say, that's it. That's what you do. That's it. Because anybody can make it complicated, but to make it simple, even like jigging or trolling, that's it. Yep.
Yeah, that's probably the most dangerous lure an inexperienced caster could ever throw. and I gotta know. I mean, you gotta have like almost a hospital inside your boat ready for that thing, because there's a front and back hook and a treble hook, and I've been hit by those really hard. And it's, even if you don't get hooked, it's like getting hit by a bullet.
Ooh. Yeah. Somebody just asked the question, do you tie the puppet minnow on the line or use a swivel? I tie direct. I tie braid direct to it, just like I do to
braid.
Just like I do to my jig for the river. And then sometimes people will say, well, aren't you afraid the fish are going to see it? I'm like, okay, hold on. This will be fun. So the fish sees it, then what? Well, then they don't bite. Well, why is that? Well, do they know it's a trap? I mean, it's a trap because it's got line.
Yeah.
Then I'll say, did anybody ever eat fish in a restaurant? You know how they get them? They net them.
Yeah.
Well, how do they sneak up with a net? No. They swim
into
a net. They swim,
especially with that technique. If they have long enough to look for the line, you're not fishing it right anyway.
Exactly.
You want them to see it, and then you want them not to see it, so they come running after it and smack it right away the first time.
Hey, Sam, could you just we're getting close. Tell the viewers what they have a chance to win very soon from now.
been dug into all this great conversation with Ken.
Yeah,
But yes, we have like 10 more minutes left, so make sure to like, comment, and share the show, and that'll get you entered in to win the Northland giveaway. A bunch of deep V jigs, the Roadshow mug. So like, comment, and share, and we'll be picking a winner in about 10 minutes here. So get it
and
down.
we got some pictures here of Ken. I think we got some here. You grip and grin. This should get people thinking open water, and you can actually see shore there. So maybe that's not Erie. That's their shoreline. Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
it's not on the giant ocean.
That was on a puppet minnow right there. That fish. The local bait store has a contest every year for the biggest walleye, and the walleye up there in this northern lake that I fish an awful lot. September, October, November, December. That was the biggest walleye turned in by just over 4 pounds.
Wow.
So up there, you get a lot of, 1, 2, 3, 3.5, 4 is a big one. So if you get one over 8, that's a big fish up there.
Yeah, and people are wondering if you use them for trout. Well, you probably catch trout in a lot of those Great Lakes waters.
If I do, I don't remember. I'm a walleye snob. That's what I do.
Walleye guy at heart.
I love my panfish though too. Do you ever go after jumbo perch? I mean, Erie it reminds me of a giant Mille Lacs or something because full walleyes, jumbo perch, a little bit of everything, northerns, muskies. But do you ever target big perch?
Oh, bro, I'm glad you asked that because the same. I'm hesitant to say the lakes that I fish in northern Michigan.
You don't have to.
But I will
area
tell you.
Lakes.
But I will tell you that while we're getting these walleye, we're getting perch on occasion legit over 15.
Oh, wow. Pushing 2 pounds?
Oh, they're dandies. I mean, and you can get, 12s, 13s, 13.5, a push a 14. But then when you get 15, you get one that's so big that it doesn't have stripes anymore. It outgrew its stripes. It's like
looks like a smallmouth bass.
It's like this is crazy.
Yeah.
So you can it's the same way.
Interesting.
You're catching them the same way you're catching
absolutely.
Yeah. Trolling spinners, puppet minnows.
That's a great question.
Spinners, the puppet minnows.
The puppet minnows. Okay.
How many walleyes have you caught this year?
Let's see. It was 26. But I don't know. It's about 650
already this year.
Yeah.
All right, I'm out of here.
This is why Minnesota doesn't let us have 3 lines, Ken.
Exactly.
Wow. Podcast. No, can't do that.
Yeah. 2,000 is my bogey for every year. 2,000 is what the mission is every year.
Wow. Well, take Erie out. Take Erie out, and you talk about the walleye tour when we did the tour. The 3-rod states come to Minnesota and use 1 rod. It was psychological on them. It actually messed them up.
It did. When I fished Mille Lacs, I fished one of those. What's the one with 250 boats? The
wave whackers, maybe?
No, the
Cabela's
something. Yeah, the National Team Championship, NTC. Yeah,
NTC.
So, and I came out there. It's like, oh my goodness, I got to think about what I would do under different circumstances. So I got out my 9.5-foot rod, and I got out harnesses. I got out little bullet weights, and I really kind of, I would cast out when it would get behind the boat. I'd cast out again, so at least I'm covering some water instead of just slow trolling. Yep. So,
and vice versa, I think when us one-liners get to some of those 2-line opportunities, that throws us for a loop because now we're trying to figure out how to jig with 2 rods or troll 14 lines behind a boat. That can be a mess too. So it's kind of funny how it can be an advantage and a disadvantage.
It's interesting. And being in the tournaments when I did do them professionally, it was really cool seeing everything and comparing notes. And I had a lot of fun in Missouri, Erie, Badenoch, Big Badenoch. That's Erie pristine waters up there, and it's so interesting seeing these locations. That's why to bring this on, I want to show people from around the Midwest and talk to Ken about this area because they might not have even known it existed. I wouldn't have gone there if I didn't know about the tournament. I might have, but now I want to go there every year because we have our walleye opener, we have sturgeon, but it's kind of a thing that time of year when you're on Detroit River is fun to be there, and it's always really cool. And there's a lot of places to go outside of Disney World, Arizona, and Florida. There's cool stuff in the Midwest, spring, summer, fall, and there's just not enough time for it all. But and it's really cool that you've had a chance to fish here. If you could throw one tip to people who've never fished there before, okay, puppet minnow. But outside of puppet minnow, if they're going to head to Lake Erie or Detroit River, what's one thing you would tell them? And it can be anything.
Well, it would be different based on where they're going to go. I'm kind of a three-pronged fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
I vertical jig in the spring until I troll with crawler harnesses. I go through about 12 to 15,000 crawlers a year. And then as soon as the water cools down enough, the rule of thumb is cold water vertebrates, warm water invertebrates. When it's time to go to minnow baits, then I go to puppet minnows. My life gets a lot simpler once I'm not washing crawlers in the fall. So I'm going to tell people if they're going to jig, if they're going to come to Michigan in March, April, May, maybe even into the beginning of June, try to find a place that you can jig. Detroit River, St. Clair River.
Yeah.
If you're going to come here later May, June, July, like to Michigan where I live, trolling, I troll crawler harnesses. Being a charter captain, I have to catch fish.
Yeah.
And I tell people that pull cranks, I will always catch more fish than you. I will always catch more because, when I say fish, I love catching sheepshead and catfish and white bass and white perch and yellow perch. And if it bites, you're getting them on harnesses. So that's what I'm doing. But then
that's
later,
very interesting.
What I would tell people is if you're going to come fish Michigan in the fall, find the deepest water you can. What I tell people, nothing personal, bro, but if you're going to give up one season of fishing, make it ice fishing. It's the most effort for the least productive. Typically, you're not covering a lot of water unless you're on Saginaw and you're on an ice flow.
Well, I love my ice. Like today I was out ice fishing and as far as and talk about Minnesota, when this is good, it's really good. Last fall with a clicker and witnesses in 8 hours, we had 125 fish that we boated, caught and released. And I'm not out to injure every fish in the body of water, but I just wanted to see what we could do. And that's how we're sitting right now as far as fishing goes. We're in a really good spot. And every state has its mecca, and I enjoy fishing all of them. I still buy lottery tickets every week because I will be right there with you, and I wouldn't have to bring a boat. I could just jump in with you for a week. Drive you nuts.
The last part of that, though, is if you're only going to fish one season, make it the fall.
Yeah.
Because it's the most predictable. The fish are typically on the bottom in deep water in areas that they couldn't get to before the lake turned over. So now all that oxygen-rich water from the top is on the bottom of the lake, and those fish are down there. They're the easiest to find. They're the most aggressive. There's the least amount for them to eat, and they're feeding more to put on their winter weight, getting ready to spawn. So,
fantastic! This was a great show.
Yeah,
I can't believe how fast this show went. We got to pick a winner, and so let's pick a winner, and so we got a big giveaway. Let's give stuff away.
Yep, Brooke just got me the winner giveaway. So tonight's winner of the Roadshow mug, the Northland prize pack with all the deep V jigs, is Mike Vetterkind. I hope I said that last name right. But
congratulations, Mike.
And remember, if you didn't win tonight, or even if you did, Mike, go to northlandtackle.com as well. Make sure to sign up for the walleye sweepstakes, $500 prize pack we're giving away. It's an awesome show. Ken, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Ken Clark from Fish Misguide Service over in Michigan, Detroit River, Saginaw Bay, Erie. You want to learn these bodies of water, you want to have a good time, give him a shout. He'll put you on some good fishing, and we all appreciate coming out. And my co-host Sam and Brooke, our producer, we'll see you next Monday. Good luck fishing, and I hope you got your spots picked out in Wisconsin. Saturday's the opener. Ours is the following week. We'll catch you later. Thanks a lot, everybody, for coming out.